Have you ever felt disconcerted after a conversation, with a strange sense of guilt or confusion, even though you don't understand exactly why? You may have been a victim of emotional manipulation. But manipulation is not always obvious. Often, it hides in seemingly harmless phrases, disguised as concern or sincerity. In this video, we will unveil 7 phrases that reveal the truth about manipulation, based on the ideas of renowned psychologist Carl Jung. Jung, with his deep understanding of the human psyche and the functioning of the unconscious, offers crucial insights to understand how manipulation works in our minds. He shows us that manipulation is not just a matter of blatant lies, but rather a subtle strategy that exploits our emotional and psychological vulnerabilities. It often operates at an unconscious level, influencing our perceptions and decisions without us even realizing it. Understanding these mechanisms is the first step towards protecting ourselves. Subscribe to our channel, join this community. The 7 phrases we will analyze are like X-rays for the manipulative mind, allowing you to see through the facade of kindness to identify the true intentions behind the words. They are common, used on a daily basis in various relationships, from personal to professional. Learning to recognize them is essential for your mental health and for building healthy and authentic relationships. Get ready to identify warning signs that often go unnoticed. Let's look at phrases like, "I'm just being honest with you." One that seems harmless, but can be used to justify verbal attacks disguised as sincerity. We will also see how phrases like, "You are exaggerating," minimize your emotions and experiences, invalidating your perception of reality. And like the classic, "After everything I've done for you," it turns favors into emotional debts, creating a cycle of veiled manipulation. In addition to these, we will explore 2 more phrases that often escape our perception, but which are also powerful weapons in manipulation. Be ready to discover how these 7 phrases can affect your life and, more importantly, how you can protect yourself. Let's delve into the fascinating world of emotional manipulation and uncover its secrets, with the help of Carl Jung's insightful ideas. Now that we have introduced the concept of emotional manipulation through Carl Jung's lens, let's analyze the first 3 phrases that often serve as a facade for manipulative behaviors. Remember that the intention is not to label people, but rather to recognize communication patterns that may indicate an unbalanced dynamic. The key is to notice how you feel after the interaction, and not just in the words themselves. The first sentence, "I'm just being honest with you," is seemingly harmless. Who doesn't value honesty? However, Jung teaches us to observe the intention behind the words. This phrase is often used as a shield to justify cruel criticism or disrespectful comments. The manipulator places himself in the position of holder of absolute truth, and any contrary reaction is immediately invalidated under the allegation of lack of honesty. Note the context. Is honesty expressed aggressively or sarcastically? Is there a tone of judgment or belittling? If so, the probability of manipulation is high. Jung would say that this is a projection of the shadow, the unconscious and repressed aspect of the manipulator's personality, being discharged onto the victim. The second phrase, "You're exaggerating," is even more insidious. It directly attacks your perception of reality, a technique known as gaslighting. By minimizing your emotions and experiences, the manipulator seeks to invalidate your feelings and question your own sanity. If you feel confused or insecure after hearing this phrase, it's a warning sign. Your emotions are valid, and you have the right to feel them. Jung highlights the importance of intuition and connection with one's own unconscious. To disregard your emotions is to cut off access to this valuable internal compass. The third sentence, "After everything I've done for you," is a subtle form of emotional blackmail. Past favors are transformed into debts, creating dependence and a feeling of obligation. Healthy relationships are based on genuine reciprocity, not emotional accounting. True generosity does not expect constant recognition or demand eternal compensation. If someone constantly reminds you of their actions to justify abusive behavior or manipulate you, it is a clear sign of immaturity and a transactional, rather than authentic, view of relationships. Jung would emphasize the importance of autonomy and individuality in mature relationships. This phrase seeks to undermine exactly that. Notice how these three seemingly harmless phrases can subtly control and manipulate. In the next part, we will look at additional phrases that also signal manipulative behavior, revealing more tactics used to destabilize the victim. Now let's deepen our analysis, adding two crucial phrases to the repertoire of manipulative tools, complementing Carl Jung's perspective on the unconscious dynamics involved. These phrases, although they may seem less obvious than the previous ones, are equally effective in undermining the victim's self-confidence and autonomy. The fourth sentence, "You always do this," is a dangerous generalization that distorts reality. It creates a negative pattern, regardless of the truth of the facts. Even if a specific behavior occurred only once, or in exceptional circumstances, the phrase turns it into a habit ingrained in the victim's personality. This generates a feeling of guilt and helplessness, making the person more susceptible to manipulation. Jung teaches us about the importance of individuation, the process of integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the personality to achieve wholeness. This phrase obstructs individuation by fixing a negative and unrealistic image of the victim. The constant repetition of the phrase, even in different situations, reinforces the generalization, making self-criticism a vicious cycle. The manipulator, in this case, uses generalization as a way to silence the victim, avoiding discussion of specific problems and taking control of the narrative. The fifth sentence, "It's all your fault," is a blatant form of blame shifting. The manipulator completely avoids taking responsibility for their actions or feelings, projecting all the blame onto the victim. This creates a toxic environment where the victim constantly feels guilty, even when they are not at fault. Jung would highlight the importance of personal responsibility, a crucial aspect of psychological health. By denying his own responsibility, the manipulator prevents conflict resolution and keeps the victim in a position of subservience. This dynamic is particularly harmful in intimate relationships, where constant guilt can erode self-esteem and confidence in one's perception of reality. Note that this phrase, often accompanied by an accusatory tone, interrupts any attempt at constructive dialogue. These two phrases, together with the previous three, illustrate the sophistication of emotional manipulation. They are not just isolated words, but pieces of a puzzle that, together, construct a distorted narrative of reality, leading the victim to question their own sanity and ability to discern the truth. Manipulation is not just about telling explicit lies, but about subtly distorting perception, creating an alternative reality where the victim feels confused, insecure, and guilty. In the next part, we will analyze the final two sentences, which, from Jung's perspective, represent the deepest and most destructive levels of emotional manipulation. Prepare to recognize patterns that you may have already experienced. We come to the last two phrases, those that, according to Carl Jung's perspective, represent the deepest and most destructive stages of emotional manipulation. These phrases not only distort reality, but also directly attack the victim's identity and self-esteem, undermining their autonomy and sense of personal worth. Recognizing them is crucial to freeing yourself from toxic relationships and regaining control of your own life. The sixth phrase, "You made me feel this way," is a sophisticated form of manipulation that shifts complete responsibility for the manipulator's emotions to the victim. Instead of taking responsibility for their own feelings, the manipulator places the blame on someone else. This phrase is deeply misleading because when he does, someone else feels something. Our emotions are internal responses to external stimuli, filtered through our own experiences, beliefs, and perspectives. The manipulator ignores this complex process and simplifies it in a way that places the responsibility on the victim. Jung would emphasize the importance of emotional self-responsibility, the ability to recognize and process your own emotions without blaming others. By using this phrase, the manipulator avoids self-examination and responsibility for their actions, maintaining control of the situation and avoiding any consequences for their behavior. Note how this phrase prevents any possibility of productive dialogue, as the conversation revolves around victim blame and not resolving the conflict. The seventh sentence, "If you really love me, you would do this for me," represents the most extreme form of emotional blackmail. It is not a request, but rather a demand that uses love as a weapon to control and manipulate. This phrase turns love and affection into a psychological prison, placing the victim in front of an impossible choice: deny their own needs and limits to please the manipulator, or be accused of not loving. Jung would highlight how this type of manipulation profoundly harms the individuation process, preventing the person from developing their own sense of identity and autonomy. The phrase imposes an obligation, creates an invisible emotional debt, which the victim feels obliged to pay. The manipulator seeks to impose his will through an emotional ultimatum, using the victim's guilt and insecurity as instruments of control. Note that this phrase is often used in abusive relationships, where love is distorted and used as a tool of domination. Understanding these 7 phrases as manipulation mechanisms is essential to protecting your mental health and building healthier relationships. In the next part, we will explore how you can protect yourself from these types of manipulation, focusing on building self-awareness and assertiveness. Learning to identify these tactics is the first step to freeing yourself from toxic relationships and regaining your personal power. Now that you've identified the 7 phrases that frequently signal emotional manipulation, let's discuss how to protect yourself and build healthier relationships. The key to freeing yourself from these toxic dynamics lies in self-knowledge, assertiveness, and building healthy boundaries. Remember that recognizing manipulation is not about blaming others, but about protecting yourself and creating relationships based on respect and reciprocity. Firstly, it is crucial to develop your emotional intelligence. This means being connected to your own emotions, understanding what you feel and why. When you are in touch with your own emotions, it becomes easier to identify when something is not right in an interaction. Pay attention to your physical signs: muscle tension, rapid heartbeat, tightness in your chest or stomach. These are all indicators that something may be wrong. Your body knows before your mind can even articulate the problem. Increase your body awareness and learn to interpret these signals. Second, set clear, healthy boundaries. This means defining what you are willing to tolerate and what you are not. Communicate these limits assertively, without being afraid to say no when necessary. Practice the art of saying no firmly and respectfully, without feeling guilty or justifying your decisions. Remember that you have the right to protect your emotional and mental health. Don't feel obligated to please others at the expense of your own well-being. Third, develop assertive communication skills. Learn to express your needs and feelings clearly and respectfully, without attacking or blaming others. Practice active listening, seeking to understand the other person's perspective, but without letting it invalidate your own emotions and experiences. Learn to differentiate between constructive criticism and a personal attack. Fourth, seek professional help if necessary. A therapist can help you identify patterns of behavior in your relationships, develop communication skills, and deal with the impact of manipulation. Don't hesitate to seek support when you feel you need it. It is an act of courage and care for your mental health. Finally, cultivate self-knowledge. The more you know yourself, your emotions, your values, and your limits, the easier it will be to identify and resist manipulation. Practice self-reflection, identify your emotional triggers, and work on your insecurities. The stronger and more authentic you are, the less vulnerable you are to manipulation. The journey to free yourself from manipulation is a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Remember, you have the power to choose your relationships and protect your own mental health. We have reached the end of this journey of discovery about emotional manipulation, using the insight of Carl Jung to illuminate the subtle pitfalls that often go unnoticed. We hope that throughout these 6 parts, you have gained valuable tools to identify and protect yourself from manipulative tactics. Remember that recognizing these patterns is not a sign of weakness, but rather of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Manipulation is a reality in many relationships, whether personal or professional. Don't feel guilty or embarrassed if you identify with any of the situations presented. The important thing is that you now have a new level of awareness and ability to identify these harmful dynamics. You are not alone, and recognizing the problem is the first step towards a solution. By applying the strategies discussed, developing emotional intelligence, assertive communication, establishing healthy limits, and seeking professional help when necessary, you will be able to build more authentic and respectful relationships. Self-knowledge is your greatest weapon against manipulation. The more connected you are to yourself, the easier it will be to identify attempts at external control. Remember the importance of cultivating relationships based on reciprocity, respect, and genuine honesty. If you've encountered these manipulative tactics in your relationships, consider cautious distancing or open, honest dialogue about your needs and boundaries. Don't hesitate to seek professional help to overcome the effects of manipulation and build healthy relationships. Share this video with people you believe can benefit from this knowledge. Awareness about manipulation is a crucial step toward creating a world of healthier, more authentic relationships. Continue the journey of self-knowledge, strengthening your ability to identify and resist manipulations, and building a fuller and more meaningful life. Subscribe to the channel for more content about mental health and well-being. Thanks for watching.